Edan Shahar, a CEO and founder of a startup called Wild Zebra, which is going to be revolutionizing the way we learn.
AI tools really want to give answers. It's an answering machine today. And we are needing to break that a little bit, because in education, the goal is not to give them the answer. The goal is to facilitate an experience where they can discover the answer. We have concluded work with four of sort of the top independent schools in the US. We've had 6,000 students use our platform. My very first company, we were kind of feature creep, really focusing on what do you actually need in order to deliver value is super duper critical. So that maniacal focus is something that I've taken since that company.
Probably new to you to be spending so much on hosting infrastructure from day one.
That is, you're nailing one of the big problems that we have. Our inference costs today it's weird. It's like I'm almost running a services business. It is very, very expensive to be serving this. The challenge in my life is I need to have patience with my kids. But in work, I don't have that. Building the internal pressure is actually really helpful. The very last job that any human will have is teaching other humans how to be better humans. I retire every day, retire into my hobby.
Hello, everyone. On this episode of the Founders Code, we have Edan Shahar, a CEO and founder of a startup called Wild Zebra, which is going to be revolutionizing the way we learn. Hello, Edan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. How has your week been?
It's been a very exciting week. We are in the process of the go-to-market with Wild Zebra, and so it's a very intense time. We have concluded work with four of sort of the top independent schools in the US. We've had 6,000 students use our platform, and yeah, it's the results are just, I've been, and I'm sure we'll get to this, I've been building companies now for, I guess since 2006. And so this, getting this kind of traction at this stage is something I'm not used to. And this kind of feedback is it's amazing. We are in the best time with AI for, I think for startups, certainly, kind of in my consumer internet or tools for students. It's really a magical time to be alive.
Probably new to you to be spending so much on hosting infrastructure from day one.
That is, you're nailing one of the big problems that we have. Our inference costs today it's weird. It's like I'm almost running a services business, where there is a marginal cost on a new user. Right now we're not totally in the optimization phase, but we are, it is very, very expensive to be serving this. Our perspective is we will use all of the tools available to make the experience as good as possible, which means that, it's the top models and, on the fastest rails possible. Yeah. Later on, there's an assumption that the cost is going to come down, but I hope so.
Well, it did in the past, right? I think about 10 times cheaper within 2 years. Was it that we've seen?
Something like that. I hope so. That would be great. That would be a phenomenal outcome for us. There is that assumption for sure. And I would say even the very best models today, they're not hitting 100% of what we want. And so that's okay. We'll still be pushing the frontier when we create these experiences. And there's just a lot of very deep work into the models, because one of the things that we've found is that AI tools really want to give answers. You go to ChatGPT, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. It's an answering machine today. And we are needing to break that a little bit, because in education, it's when you facilitate education, if you are teaching somebody something, or you're helping them study for something, or you're tutoring them on something, the goal is not to give them the answer. The goal is to facilitate an experience where they can discover the answer. And so it's a little contrary to a lot of how these tools are fundamentally built. So there's a lot that goes into that, and really thinking through and being deliberate in as students move through when they need a tool that truly understands them. So understands exactly what they're working on, where their misunderstandings are, where sort of the gaps are. They understand, the tool also understands many, many other students and sort of what is the trajectory that others have gone on so that we can best help you. And so that's the first core. And then the layer on top of that is a Socratic tutor that can then take that information and bring the student along in an engaging way. And then the last point is sort of like, when is it the right time to be a very supportive coach and really encourage the students, because so much of the battle today is around engagement, and especially with the world being as exciting as it always is, and more so now with the TikToks and whatnot. The right solution needs to meet the students where they are and engage them in things that are interesting. And that's one of the things that AI is amazing at, right? So one of the sort of the fundamentals of what we're doing is there's no more, trains leaving Chicago and going to Boston, or, I don't know, leaving Kiev and going to Berlin or something, unless you're into trains, and there are people that are into trains, but like, why not have your education be in the context of the things you're interested in? We actually recently, this is just a really funny story. We had a student, some of the feedback we got was a student said, I have a really particular interest that almost nobody knows about, and now I'm like learning all of math through that. And so, that's one of these things. It's really amazing.
He's basically finding the most personalized approach to studying to each student.
That's right. And contextualizing it, I think that there's some students that, I don't know who you were as a 12-year-old. Maybe there were some aspects of what you do today that you already knew you were interested in. Like, why not learn about it? Learn about the math or whatever it is that you're learning about in the context of the things that you're interested in. So we think a lot about that as well.
So take me through the overall vision. For example, when I remember myself at 12 years old, I would go to school. There would be 2 subjects that I like. There would be another 12 that I indifferent to. I would sit there. I would study whatever I'm being told. I would do my homework. I would do my test. That's it. Finish.
Right.
What is your vision? What is the vision that Wild Zebra is trying to solve for?
So the ultimate vision, the world that I see, maybe 5 or 6 years from now, is a world in which each of us has an AI agent that is our educational partner. It helps us understand the world. And this agent that begins in middle school, it knows how to teach you best. It knows how you learn best. I mean, whether that's like time of day or how to ask you questions, or sort of what's the right amount of encouragement you need, and how to contextualize things into how you best understand them. And it actually stays, I mean, the ultimate vision is it's something that stays with you throughout your life. So, right now our target is kind of middle school and 3rd through 10th grade, and we're seeing incredible results. And right now it's hyper targeted. It's math and reading. I mean, like, can we nail math and reading? But obviously it will extend beyond that. And this agent that comes with you, that is with you through your middle school years, will extend on into your high school years and into your college years. And each time it's going out, it's discovering the information and the knowledge that's out there, and it knows the best way to bring it to you so you can understand it. And it also has a memory of the things that it thinks when is the right time to bring another subject back. Sort of, there's this concept called spiraling, where you move on, but every once in a while you come back to a subject, and then it continues and stays with you even beyond your college years, and when you go to get a job. So if somebody were to join your company, there would be a corpus of information about the things that you guys do, how you work, what's true about sort of the culture of the company, what specific tools are needed. And and then it'll know about me if I'm trying to join your company, how I learn best, and it will be able to sort of bring that to me, and help me in that learning process. So I see the world that I see is tools that help people in their educational journey throughout their lives. But with all that being said, right now, in order to win that, in order to create that, what we're really focusing on is, can we teach the next student the next math concept in the best possible way and create a really differentiated experience? So, you were talking about when you were 12 years old. When you went to school, there was probably some classes where, maybe for you it was different. You were way ahead of a lot of students, right? And of course, no
Math. That was
math.
mine. Math and
Exactly.
English.
Exactly. Okay. So great. So let's imagine that English is an area where you needed more help, and math is an area where the teacher was in front of 20 kids or however, 15 or 30 kids, and doing the best they can. And the question is, how can you sort of create a differentiated experience? And so there's no reason why you couldn't have done calculus in, sixth grade, assuming you had advanced to that level, and this tool would be able to meet you there. And also, we're actually going into school, so the tool also is sort of the teacher interacts with it as well. So it lets the teacher know, where you have students are advancing or where they're getting stuck. And then on the English side, maybe there were gaps. They were talking about things that were kind of more advanced, and you were sick, a month ago, and you don't know what something meant, and you sort of had this gap. Well, this tool can then go and find that and help you in that specific spot. So the idea is you can imagine every single student in the world having a private tutor or a learning specialist sitting next to them, helping them along the way, helping them get unstuck when they're stuck, and also enabling them to dive deeper where they're really interested. And really going sort of at a much deeper level. Like if there's this mathematical concept that you find fascinating, like let's explore it further.
And for how long would we need a human in the loop with this tool?
Yeah, so one of my views of the world is that and I say this to a lot of people, is I actually think that the very last job that any human will have is teaching other humans how to be better humans. In essence, being teachers is actually the last job we'll have, because when AI is better at mowing your lawn, cleaning the carpet, doing brain surgery and everything else, what it will never be able to do is actually have had the experience of what it is to be human. That's kind of a deeper metaphysical point. I think that in reality, on the ground today, teachers and humans are going to need to be in the loop all the time, because these tools can help you learn knowledge and skills, but they don't actually teach you how to build character. And so, for example, my ability to have this conversation with you today has been honed over my 38 years of having conversations with people, and collaborative work in a group. And also, and it's, of course, to be fair, all of this is in front of a screen. Oftentimes the best way to learn something is actually very physical and tactile and kind of doing things in a group. So I think we're still very, very far distance from a time, especially for kids, when there's no human in the loop. And I actually don't think we ever will be in that. I actually think that potentially we will be in a place where everyone is laid off from all the other jobs, and basically what all of us do is we're all private teachers and tutors to kids, where you could imagine, I'm looking at here in Seattle, I see cars driving here. I could imagine that, all drivers are automated, and, there's people working on the building here. I could imagine there's robots that would be fixing, or doing window cleaning on this building. And I can see down there Amazon, and I can imagine that, most of the developers at Amazon. But when I think about it, and I've got two kids, I want for them to have human connection, and sort of building that experience is, I think, the direction that we're going in the long run. So very long-winded answer to say, I think this hopefully brings us closer, or AI in general brings us closer. And I think that there's just specific sets of skills and knowledge that can be delivered in a better way with AI.
And what if you take into account the fact that the biggest use for AI currently has been therapy and personal coaching? It's something that like every person ends up using it. Well, almost every person ends up using it for. Like
Yeah,
those seem to be like my wife is a psychotherapist,
yeah,
and first time I told her that I was switching my therapist with Claude, she was like, "No, you know, AI system will never replace real connections." But then for me, it was quite effective. It went a lot quicker through a lot of things. Maybe not in the best way, but it was kind of effective, like for my smile. And that's where it's interesting to me to know your position on having the humans in the loop as teachers or mentors when we see currently a lot of people trying to use the tools for coaching and therapy, like finding that real connection when it should really be with humans, but they're just out there with an electric brain.
yeah. I mean, one of the things I think about that is, and I think about this also for Wild Zebra, is sort of the context of Uber. And one of the challenges that exists right now for a lot of people is it's either extremely inconvenient or extremely expensive to get a therapist. And for Wild Zebra on the other side, it might be very inconvenient or very expensive to get a private tutor. And so I think that's one element of it. I mean, I also know the ChatGPT or Claude as a therapist. There are other interesting elements about people feeling like they're not being judged. So it's sort of in that specific, the non-judgmentalism of it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where things are. Yeah, my wife is. She's been. We might need to cut this, but she's been vibe
Okay.
coding. She's been vibe coding, actually, sort of a tool, an assistant tool for therapists.
Mhm.
And so, she's really been diving very deep into how these tools, her view is like that, not that it replaces a therapist, but there's a lot of work in between sessions. And so she wants to like find the right way to capture it and work through it so that actually she can be more effective in the therapy session. So I think a lot about this as well. I'm not exactly sure where things go.
Mhm.
And yeah, I certainly think there could be dark sides to these types of tools.
Why Wild Zebra with the naming?
What's the name?
Yeah.
We wanted to have something memorable, interesting, and I don't know. Why not? Why not Wild
Something.
Zebra?
I like it. It sticks in your brain. And if you consider having done companies before, does it become easier the second time, the third time around?
That's a great question. I think it becomes there's a different kind of easiness and challenge. There's like the experiencing self of like in the moment, is it easier? And the answer to that is it's definitely a lot easier to make it successful. And then there's the experience of it. I mean, honestly, the biggest difference for me today from previous companies that I've started is I'm in a different life stage with two kids that are young, 5 and 2, which also, of course, gets into all of my ideas of Wild Zebra and how I want for them to be thinking about education. And but that's a difference. Is I'm just in a different life stage, but certainly the lessons of each company are paying dividends into the next one. It's learning about focus, learning about sales cycles, learning about distribution. All these lessons, hard learned lessons from previous companies are all coming to bear at this point. Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit more about those experiences? Because I can imagine a lot of founders listening to this and be like, okay, he's learned something in sales, he's learned something in hiring. What exactly was it? Maybe you can share like one like big lesson that.
I think that my very first company, that I started in undergrad was trying to go for a social network at the time, right when Facebook was just kind of getting started. And it was a brilliant idea, I might add. Now, it obviously wasn't because the execution wasn't there. But the important thing I learned at that point was we were kind of feature creep and really thinking about what's absolutely critical. That one I was working on with some friends, and it was, again, as Facebook was beginning to scale, still only at universities, but they would come out with a new feature and we were like, oh, we have to have the calendar feature, we had to have like this thing, and really focusing on like what do you actually need in order to deliver value is super duper critical. So that maniacal focus is something that I've taken since that company. And we ask the question all the time, like, what are the things that, like, if we don't build this thing is unusable versus we think this might be a nice to have, and really ensuring that we're nailing that. It seems very obvious. Like, of course, when I say that, the reality on the ground is you have your designer tell you, like, this thing looks horrible. I'm embarrassed to be a part of this company when like things look like this. And and you talk to the devs and they say to you, listen, if we happen to have more than 401 people log on within the same minute, like the whole thing is going down. And then you've got your salespeople that say, like, if this feature does not work, I cannot sell this to anyone. So the reality is that then you need to look across all those and you say, okay, well, like, I guess we tell the sales team to, bring on people, but not have more than 401 come on at a time. I got to talk to the designer, like, is there a smoother way we can have as an intermediate stage? And I talk to the salesperson, and, so the real challenge is not in the high level knowledge. It's actually in the fight on the ground where you are trying to balance those things. That is, for me at least, maybe other people are really good at this. For me, that's still a challenge, but having that clarity of experience is a complete game changer. So that's one thing. I had another company, the second company that also didn't work out, was a company where we were trying to do some things in advertising and sort of, and actually charities. And there I learned about the sales cycle at large companies and sort of how you can get a lot of excitement. You can get a lot of people interested. We did, projects with some pretty big companies, but the sales cycle just absolutely killed us. And so there it's about understanding both, sort of, can you give the pain reliever versus a vitamin story? And the pain reliever can compress the sales cycle quite a bit. So really kind of owning and experiencing that is super duper helpful. So those are just two things. I've got lots of mini experiences in different places, but to your question of what I've learned and how is it easier. So again, going back, right? So is it easier? I think it's easier to make better decisions. It's still just as hard though, right? I think that at the time, sort of the feature creep or deciding what's important and experiencing it today, it really is just as hard. It's just the clarity of understanding that, like, I have to make a decision. I have to make it quickly, and we have to really prioritize. So emotionally just as difficult, much more likely to be successful because of the learnings. That's been my experience.
Does it also teach you to be more patient at times? Because when you've talked about the long periods of securing like large clients, I go through that quite a lot of times. Even now, there are like deals like which are like 7-figure deals, but it's been like 9 months, and it's like it's been almost for like 6 months, and then you're like, okay, this is how it's done. You need to be patient, and yeah, it's something that would be good to know before getting into them. It's like what to expect. I think it'll be easier to plan internal work around that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Like, I should have learned more patience for sure. I'm more maybe accepting of the suffering that I experienced by my lack of patience, and I know that sometimes it takes time. So there's a little bit less dread, but patience is not actually my. It's not a part of the journey that that I think is important for me to optimize right now. I think about like maybe once I'm like 45, maybe 50, like I look forward to a time where you and I can talk again, and I can tell you like patience is something that I've come to master. Today I do almost, it's even, I would even go more extreme. I for myself, building the internal pressure is actually really helpful. And so I actively try not to have patience. The challenge in my life is like I need to have patience when I am in other aspects of my life with my kids. So it's actually being able to detach and separate. But in work, I don't have that. I would probably enjoy the work that I do more. I maybe there's a bit of fear that if I had more patience, I would also let off on urgency. And I think that maybe that's the, if you were going to be my AI therapist here, maybe maybe that's the question is, can like how, what's the interplay between urgency and patience? I'm sure that many people have mastered that. I'm not one of them.
What I've noticed, maybe with my sessions,
Yeah.
is the balance between when I want to be less patient, when I want to be okay with being less patient within the company, I found that I need to also be okay with being more aggressive within the company. Because less patient, like when you allow yourself to be patient, like how long is this gonna take? 3 weeks. You're like, oh, I thought it's gonna take a week, but okay, let's do it in 3 weeks. You can get it done within a week, like absolutely, like as with anything, but you would have to push. And this is where you'll have to stop being nice and allow yourself to be a bit more aggressive as a leader to push things. And this is probably what separates Elon Musk and others. Like, if something can get done with like 3 months, they're like, you have 2 weeks, get it
Yeah.
done, and that's it.
Right.
What do you think of that as
I think
leadership style?
I that's there's probably a lot of truth to that. I think, and I think, I mean, one of the other things that I've come to learn is, again, Elon Musk, obviously a different animal out there. He, I'm not have not operated at his level. But what I have also seen is it's about knowing your team deeply, knowing the people, and knowing when it's the time to push and when you don't. Because if you're always pushing, you do get into a stasis point. You do get into a point where there's a certain expectation from your team that you're always going to be pushing, and then then they know the things that are going to take them a week, they just need to tell you 3 weeks. So then you say, okay, but do it in a week, and they say, okay, fine, we'll do it in a week. Right. So I think it is important to really get to know your team and get to know the things that you're working on. But I'm curious for you. You're talking about these large 7-figure deals that take, sounds like a year and a half. 6 months to 9 months, and now 6 and 9 months. How do you deal with that? I mean, as you experience those things, how do you demonstrate a sense of urgency to the team, to the client? Like, how do you do all that?
A struggle, a struggle. With me, I'm the kind of person like I love what I do, and I just do it all the time. And
Yeah.
like weekends, evenings, like it doesn't matter. This is my life's game, and I like to think that I have an ability to control everything or influence everything, like every decision or anything. There are times, especially in enterprise organizations, when things just take a lot of time during summer, when somebody's on vacation and the paper has to go through a lot of different levels until it's like compliance levels, until it gets the final signatures from VPs. And I always believe that if the paper is stuck at one of the levels, I should do my best to try to reach the people on that level and be like, hey, guys, let's go. Startup world, life's short. Let's just get it done. And when you see companies with billions of dollars in budget, they're like, it's okay, we can wait. We can release it in 3 months, half a year. Like it just like there is no sense of urgency usually.
Right. Right.
And I usually try to like I'll send another email like I'll suggest like can we like let's do it this way. Let's get started on this small thing to present it to them. I would never stop to kind of try to force my way into the situation to make sure like to create that urgency and create like show that value within the organization. And then my wife just goes to me, is like, sometimes you just need to chill. Things, if they are going to take 9 months, they will take 9 months. It's not about you. Like they like you, they're already like agreed to everything. You just need to wait until the process Like, just for
Yeah. Yeah, the few things that jump out to me in your story. One, I don't know, what your sales structure and sales team is, but one lesson that I learned early on, which was like amazing, is in clients and partners, is just get as many cross connections up and down the org as you can. So like if there's a client, like there's the economic buyer that you're talking to, there's the program manager, there's the, whatever. If you can get all the way down to the guy that's making coffee in the back to know the guy that's making coffee in the back of their company and just build up rapport all up and down, that has been really successful in some of the things that I've done. It just like because you build trust and then you can also see things coming around the corner and like if there's challenges, right? So that's something. The other thing that I've also learned, I think, over the years is to ensure that your peer, like the person that you are interacting with, ideally you have sort of, you guys are at the escalation phase, and you're not doing, I'm not going to say you, for me, that I'm not, whenever possible, I'm not doing all of the pushing at each stage. And so, somebody else can do it. And then I can be like, listen, and I might even tell the person, like, I'll send them an email every single day, at 2 p.m. or something. And then at some point I can jump into the thread and be like, I'm sorry on behalf of my person who's just emailing you all the time. But, it sort of creates a separation, so you get into some of the psychology of sales there. And I don't know. Yeah. So do you have without giving away all your secrets on a podcast, I mean, do you have a larger sales team or are you a one-man operation on the sales side?
I have one more person who's doing the sales with me.
Yeah.
In terms of lead generation, I've never quite cracked the ideal level to kind of scale to. You see those companies with thousands of people,
Yeah.
and the standard sales procedures do not work for the deals of their level, and it always seems to be like every 1 or 2 years there is a bit of luck, a huge opportunity
Yeah.
that is there that you need to grab. Every sort of 5 years, there is a huge one that you need to grab. But it seems like you just have to wait and just increase the number of places which you look for opportunities to increase your chances of getting that lucky moment.
Yeah. And it changed. Yeah, I'm with you. It changes. And I think having, being as close to the ground as possible is always incredibly helpful. Yeah. To be fair, unlike other guests of yours like Court, I've never run a company that's gone public and made billions of dollars. And so obviously at that stage, it's a totally different game. Things that I've done are significantly smaller than that, but I've built a few companies that are certainly have been successful and succeeding. And so I think some of the lessons are a little bit different because I don't know what it's like. I don't know how many salespeople DocuSign has or had, but it was, whether it's hundreds or thousands, it's obviously a different operation at that point.
But if you look at the story, the biggest moments came to like the association of realtors. They came in, they signed a
Yeah.
deal, boom, huge. Microsoft deal gave them a lot of credibility. There are like these steps that kind of went
Yes.
in the way. And I feel like, there are these companies that do all of these like outreach, like 10,000 emails every month to like everybody, every single person in the industry. Somebody just spams it all and just hopes that something lands. Sometimes I look kind of like, it's such a weird kind of shitty approach, but at the same time, they do try to increase their outreach and like their chances of getting lucky are a bit higher if you're doing that, if compared to if you're not.
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of, like my perspectives have changed on a lot of different things. I mean, I really think that there's also just some companies and some products out there that really are like at a different level. And it's like, and I've experienced that where I've had some companies and some products that are not good. And I mean, so much of it I think actually has to do with the original idea. And obviously, of course, much more so probably the execution of the idea. But like, how well are you meeting the demand of the market? And then everything else kind of falls in place. Like, sure, if you if you just invented new sliced bread, and you email 10,000 people and 5,000 of those people are in, like you're it says a lot more, I think, about the business and the pain point and the solution than oftentimes the sales process, which is really hard. Like, I also advise startups. It's like a really hard reality because all of us are in so deep, but and sometimes it's like, it's just like, it just doesn't quite work. It doesn't, it's like, this is not going to be a company that scales. This is not going to be a thing that actually works. And it's tough. Right. And so you kind of being okay with that, or knowing when to, hang up and start the next one, is also an experience I personally have had a few times. So without even claiming anyone else, it is a challenge there.
I've heard the big advice is like whenever you create a product and you try to market it, unless you kill your customer acquisition cost can be a quarter of what you spend, like a quarter of the actual price of the product.
Yeah.
Like like that's when you can scale. If it's
Yeah.
anything that's less, like don't even bother, just drop it. And I've had this thing with I've started a supplements manufacturing company in Ukraine, like right as the war began. So the market shrunk. Like
Right.
people were trying to be really careful with money, and we were selling some like really high level, interesting, like brain enhancing supplements, and I would be investing so much into the business and trying to sell it and be like, yeah, let's get more branding, more reputation, more PR, more marketing. And it was almost like the CAC to LTV was almost like 1 to 1. And I was like, we just need a bit more. We just need a bit more. And now I'm thinking back, I'm like, I should have just seen that it's not to that level. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the secret. You just start. You see that it's not at that level, drop it. Start something else. What do you think?
The problem, yes, obviously in hindsight, I'm also a great investor, and I do a lot of things really well in hindsight. I don't get into arguments with my loved ones, and I make a lot of good decisions. I think obviously the I 100% agree with you. I think the big question for a lot of folks is like, you do also run into hard patches in any company. And yeah, what if you've got a week or a month of CAC to LTV that's upside down, but then you make it out of there. So I think that's the big question, is like knowing, having had the experience of going through iterations and knowing when this is like not going to work versus this is a hardship. And I think that's you probably get that through experience. Maybe you can get that through advice and partnerships, or sort of experience shares from other people of like what they've seen. But it's super tough. It's super tough. I'm curious to know. You brought up Ukraine. How are you? How are you thinking about companies that are doing things in Ukraine today? Is it like what's your mental framing? Is it like, okay, there's this stage now, and then there'll be a stage after the war? Do you imagine that world? Like, what do you think about?
Well, there is a family company that we have. It's quite large wheat manufacturing, wheat flour manufacturing plant, and it's in Mykolaiv, so it's relatively close to the front line with the southern front line as well. And I speak to a
Close,
lot of
close to Odessa, yeah.
close to Odessa and close to Kherson, so it's like
Okay.
25 kilometers from the occupied zone
Oh
territory.
wow. Okay.
So it was very kind of hectic, like right from the start. And what I saw most companies try to do is stop trying to build like 5 year huge expansion plans as we did before, and kind of try to, okay, let's just give it like 6 months, after 6 months do small shifts, small plans without investing too much into infrastructure. Yeah, I think companies just in general started being a lot less ambitious and a lot just trying to survive. Because at the beginning, the number of companies stayed the same. The number of people in the country almost dropped like by half. So basically, you can imagine all of these companies still spending the same amount of dollars to attract the number of buyers, but there are only half the buyers. So you have to spend pretty much twice as much. So it's killing off like half the companies, like almost right away. So whoever stays for the longest, whoever has the most cash stored to like spend on the marketing when the CAC to LTV is like very bad, those companies kind of survive through it. I think a lot of companies closed down since then.
Do you? So I mean, if it's that 25 miles to the front line, I mean, I don't. I follow the news fairly closely. Like it seems like there's a slow, street by street grind. I mean, is there a narrative in which the Russian army gets on the other side of that 25 miles?
In the south, probably not. The main part of the conflict is on the eastern side
Right.
of Ukraine. The south, ever since half of Kherson town was taken back by
Yeah.
Ukrainians, we've managed to hold the ground quite well. And now the artillery is not reaching Mykolaiv. Like, the scariest time was 2 years ago in July. We had one of our grain storage places being bombed by 4 rockets, but it didn't. It was about 300 meters away from the main manufacturing plant, so it didn't really affect the overall operations or people.
Yeah. So there's like not. Is it like a river there that's kind of keeping you guys? Is it through Kherson? Is it a river town?
It's trenches. The thing is, it's a vast field, empty field. So
Oh,
it's really hard to advance along an empty field. There are no trees, nothing.
okay.
Yeah, so this is pretty much a place where nobody's trying to cross to either side. There are so many trenches on each side, minefields, that it'd be crazy to even try.
Ooh,
That's why it's so hard for Ukrainians to get their territories back, because there are so many trenches and minefields as well.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna lose a lot of people trying to,
It's like World War One trench warfare all over again.
pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Oh,
do you spend time in Ukraine still?
no. We've moved out with my wife about 2 years ago, and it's just really hard to run businesses and without knowing that your family's safe, your wife's safe, when you constantly have to worry about that. And there's just one less worry to take away, I guess. One less
Do you,
stress.
do you when you think about 5 years in the future, will you be living in Ukraine? Do you think?
Possibly. Possibly. Ukraine, I loved the amount of opportunities that you see in Ukraine. It was almost like a free field where you can start whatever you want and it's going to work. The startup costs are very low. The resources are like very cheap. The people are really smart. Being in Ukraine and then being able to work with partners in the US, in the West, in the East, is the gold mine. That's the position where it's like the most exciting like place to be. In 5 years, if we have a resolution now, then I guess we would strongly consider going back. It's the homeland. It's our people. It's our cafes. It's our parks. It's the place where we fell in love for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always going to be home.
Yeah. It's interesting. But homes do change. Maybe I share this with you, but I was talking to my grandma who is 92 or 93 just this morning, and her family, so her dad's family, were from Odessa, one of the largest grain um, traders, I think, in Odessa in like the early 1900s. Maybe they did business with your family. I have no idea. And but I'm Jewish, so there was one of the rounds of pogroms. I basically just took everything, and I think they barely escaped with their lives and made a new life. So it is the case that sometimes what has been home for 10 generations, that does change, of course, in this planet here.
And I've also heard a lot of people say that where you live is going to be the biggest investment that you can make. And this was about people moving to the US, like to be in Seattle, in San Francisco. Yes, it's more expensive. Yeah, the taxes are there. But at the same time, the amount of opportunities you get through just the people you meet on, like, in general, in cafes, in the gym, you can always go for coffee with somebody. It outweighs all of those drawbacks of having to spend more. So, like, I'm myself not taking away the fact that maybe in 5 years I'll be somewhere in Washington or San Francisco if I want the warmer weather.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know when people make statements like that because you can't run an experiment on a parallel universe. You know, that's what you'd need is like, what would have happened in my life if I had stayed here, or if I went here, and can I run the script on both? And so you just never know. But certainly, I do think that there's a lot to be said about about that, right? But it is one of those things where even studies where you see people moving, and then therefore you assume that is what led to the growth. Obviously, there's a fallacy in that, and a sampling bias, because those people that are willing to be entrepreneurial and move are the ones that moved, and they are the ones that maybe have had the success. And who knows what would have happened if they didn't move? They still had the entrepreneurial drive to do the thing. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think my view on so much in life is it's about the narrative that you choose to tell yourself, because the world is large and complex, and to a large extent unknowable, and certainly alternative universes are hard to predict, and even harder to model. So like what we do get to choose is the narrative that we have of our lives, and how the things, what is true to you in your self story, and how you can also edit that over time has been, and how you can see it also in others, sort of how they edit and tell the stories of their lives and the things that they're doing, and why they're doing it. I'm really fascinated in that as a personal study, and also as I look around the world and I talk to people. So maybe on that note, actually, I'd love to hear what is your self story, for example, like for you personally, like how has being Ukrainian impacted the way you do business and you work?
Good question. I think in general, Ukrainian people are extremely entrepreneurial. From the very early age, we don't really trust the government as much, because in the early days of Ukrainians' existence, we had a lot of corruptions, which we were fighting for a long time until we got to the current level. So people used to have to rely on yourself. And that kind of led to, like, if you want to be safe, you have to, like, stable, prosperous future, you have to be entrepreneurial, you have to, like, open a cafe, you have
Yeah.
to do something always, and everybody's always just trying to figure out, like, find new things to do. And I really like that mentality. We have a lot of business clubs, probably like 10, 12, like, big ones, where
Yeah.
everybody's always members of different ones. And I think that's backed with the really hard work ethic, which my parents brought from, like, the earlier USSR years, and the early years of Ukraine, when you just had to make it work. Because my dad came to the country when he was 18 to study in Ukrainian university, and then ever since that he had to prove himself. He, like, until he started his own factory and became successful. So that's the kind of worldview that I saw. Like, for me,
Where?
being Ukrainian is, huh?
Wait, I was
And
just gonna. Where was your dad from?
he's from Dagestan originally.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that creates another set of problems with my grandparents being on that side and, like, listening to those news. Yeah. But the really hard work ethics, I think that's what associates me. And this is why I like working with Ukrainians so much. Because they're the kind of people, like, when you look at Europeans, like, oh, let's have Fridays off. Let's make that as a weekend. I'm like, whoa, no, I need people. If like we need to work on Sunday, they'll be
Yeah,
like,
let's
okay,
have
I'm here.
Saturday on. Yeah,
Let's have
yeah.
Saturday on instead of having Friday off. Yeah, this is the kind of people who have. Maybe it's a psychological thing where you should be able to stop working, but the way we were brought up, we can't sit still. We need to be doing something. Is it different for you? Did you grow up in Israel?
So I'm originally from Israel, but I've been in the U.S. most of my life. I think there's also a very intense work ethic there, and yeah, I don't know how I tell myself the story of being born in Israel, but I don't know. I mean, you're talking about work, and you alluded to this earlier, but like this is not really work for me. I mean, like, I think of like work is things that are hard and you hate them and they are horrible. So like I feel like work for me would be like probably like being in a coal mine. I feel like that would be work. I feel like being on the, you know, on the front line in Donetsk or being on the front line in Gaza or something like that. That seems like work to me.
Yeah.
And for me, like there's just such a deep fascination and I find it so fun, the work that I do, that it really does not like it is 100% my hobby. I would do this if I didn't need to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some success in life where the urgency is not like it was at different points to make it just a basic living, and like this is what I choose. So I don't know. So maybe that's the real hack is like just don't ever do work. Like it's really like a useless thing to tell most people because they don't. Just like the way the modern economic model works, it's not that common where the thing that you would do as a hobby is also pays you. But ideally, you do find yourself in that situation, and I'm 100% there. So I don't know. I'm actually not sure if I would be a very hard worker. I think there's I think really, if I'm being totally honest with myself and with you right now, like if I did need to go into the coal mine every day, I don't know if I could work that hard.
You try to slack off as much as possible.
I don't know. I might be the guy in the back trying to like figure out how to like take an extra coffee break, like start smoking cigarettes so I can go out back. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, yeah, I think it's more important than building a good work ethic is finding something that you just like doing so much that it doesn't feel like work. For me, other people are different. Not everyone has the kind of, perspective on things and is like also I just happen to be fascinated by things that in our current economic system do compensate me. So like nice for me to say, but if I was really into doing art and I was a horrible artist, it would be a different kind of challenge.
And I think we're in the same boat with a lot of other founders, entrepreneurs. Like whenever somebody's like, if you didn't have a company, where would you work? I feel like I don't think I could ever work. Like
I'd
I'd
start
be
the next one.
terrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I also wouldn't. I mean, I've had a total of one bosses. Now I kind of had another boss, but really in my early days, my first boss, I worked at a retirement home, and my boss, I think the previous job he had was a Marine Corps drill sergeant or something. I was like, I don't know if having a boss is really like the right thing for me in life. So shout out to Dennis there. He, I think, also helped propel my entrepreneurial journey.
But did you ever feel like you could have used learnings from working in a really well structured organization
Ah,
in terms of management, motivation, how to approach tough situations? Like you miss all of that learning and you just go straight in. It's like, okay, I'll be a boss.
yeah. Wow. I am certain that again in that parallel universe conversation that you and I are going to have to come up with sort of a way to model that with some quantum computing, which I've also spent some time doing. yeah, I do think that I am missing out. I think that I would probably be, and I continue to try to learn, but there's not, you can read, you can watch videos, you can talk to people, but doing it is always different. I'm 100% certain there's many things that I would do much more successfully if I had a well structured experience with like exceptional bosses, exceptional, structures of of management and scaling. I do think that if I was looking to optimize success and I could retrace my journey, I probably would do things slightly different, but I wouldn't do it differently because I've really enjoyed my journey. And it's worked out great. I mean, it could have worked out better, but it's worked out really well. There was a time where I was doing some consulting, but at the same time, this was in my early 20s. I was also in a band, and we went on tour, and and ultimately my wife was in that band. So like I probably would have been better if I was working at McKinsey for again, for my career, if I was working at McKinsey for like those 3 years and not, not not playing music and drinking late into the evening. But I obviously would not trade that. Like there's no amount of like money that can buy those experiences. So anyways, yeah,
It's funny that you mentioned them. I remember I was halfway through finishing my master's in information systems management. I was like, I kind of want to start a startup, but at the same time, I kind of want to, everybody's talking about going to like huge consultancy companies. So what I did, I was like, I'm going to I'm going to apply for a job at McKinsey.
yeah,
If they reject me, I'll go with a startup with a, easy solve. If they accept me, I'll be like, okay, for that, I'll be ready to go.
yeah.
And so I started my startup.
Okay, nice. Yeah, McKinsey launches many startups. Yeah, that's
Yeah, thanks to
yeah,
them.
yeah. And what about you? Do you feel like if you had knowing everything you know now, if you needed to relive and rewrite the path, optimizing just for sort of business success, are there things that you think you have missed out on?
Oh, massively, massively. And I think this is like I've learned a lot with speaking to other founders. I think somebody with more experience, and this is where I like started changing myself. And I think it's like maybe part of the reason why people join organizations like Founder Nexus to kind of find other people and learn from them. Like for me, the importance of building relationships in business, because all business is humans and it's just people running companies and we're all just people. I would always see companies as these systems. Like you want successful sales? Easy. Hire a salesperson, hire the generation person, give them
Yeah.
tools, give them KPI. That's it. What
Right.
else? So
Right.
easy, right? It's like
Yeah.
easy peasy. And in reality, I found no, there are just so many things that, like, apart from those systems that you have to take care of, like, that I always wish that I had at least 2-3 years working in a large, well-oiled machine to kind of know how to manage people well, what kind of organizational KPIs to set at each level, how to optimize like structures. Yeah, now you have ChatGPT, which can give you like most of the examples and information. But yeah, I was kind of cocky when I was just starting. I thought, I'll create it even better than those guys at huge companies, because
Yeah.
I'm awesome, and I would just be
Well,
working.
maybe you and I can go be interns at BCG or something.
I even now I think sometimes maybe I should apply and be like an undercover kind of like
Yeah.
intern there, just to kind of see and just ask around to like what's the sales structure, like how much do you pay them? It's like
Right.
which tools do they use?
Yeah. Totally. But okay. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
The I totally hear you as far as like the like a consultancy and those types of businesses. But there are, Google is a machine. Like they don't care about, I don't know, what are like their human relations to other people. Like there are companies out there where you can get to such a scale, and it's very product driven, where you can, where they do break past that. Like I'm pretty sure if everyone at Google quit, they would still be just fine.
Yeah. Uh, and Google would acquire a lot of startups, and then startup founders would end up working. at Google. Well, they have to for at least like 2-3 years
Yeah.
after the sale. And sometimes I think like I'm missing kind of that. You, you look at TV series like The Office, and it's so much fun. They're having so much fun working there, And then you're a startup founder, and you're just sitting in the gutters 24/7, always fixing the thing that's broken, that's
Yeah.
underdeveloped, and working like you fix that, you work on the next thing. You never get to like relax and experience the whole like culture of like meeting people at the water cooler. And I thought that would be quite awesome if Google came on and was like, "Hey, Jamil, we want to buy Fluid Labs. Like, here you go. There's like 20 million. Let's go and work for us." And
By
you're
the
going to
way,
be part of
we
this
should
20.
we should we should edit that. That number was 200 million for anyone at Google that's listening, not 20 million. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sorry, it was inflation and all.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the one of the cases where I would be like, "I'll come and work for you." Like at those levels, I
Yeah.
think this is a good environment to kind of do the work.
Yeah. I think it is super interesting. And yeah, I think about this, like, would I go live on the beach, for example, for a while? I don't know. I spent a year and a half running the Israeli Quantum Computing Center, which was awesome. So, a friend of mine from undergrad, I studied physics and economics, and he was my physics lab mate, and he's the reason I was like, I shouldn't do physics, because he just like would look at the quantum mechanics homework and be like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense, and I could fumble along with it, and kind of got through it, but I was like, okay, like that's built for him. And so he went back to Israel, got his PhD, incredible guy, started a company, and then they partnered with the Israeli Innovation Authority to build a center to really bring real quantum computing to Israel. And so they needed somebody to sort of begin to put the process together, and find a location for it, and negotiate with suppliers, and find partners and all of that. And I was doing that, and it was awesome. First of all, just quantum computing, it's something it's super fun to work on, because there's fundamental changes that are happening like every single day. You can wake up and like today might be the day that like somebody made another breakthrough on something. We're still, like, as far as commercialization, we're still not quite there, or at least not widespread. There are some people that claim that there's things. Anyways, long story short, I had a boss there, in the sense that, like, the CEO of the company, I sort of had my own little thing, but there was CEO. And one of the things that was very tough for me is like I hadn't been in negotiations where like I can't just make the decision, and like things are slowed down, and it made sense. He was working on other things. What was that?
Did that feel?
It felt horrible. It was like it took some of the fun away of, it was really big contracts, really big deals, but sometimes it was like, I didn't have purview and visibility to all the decision making of the company. It was like I was involved in this thing, and we're going to sign a multi-million-dollar deal. So it was like, obviously there are other implications, but I felt like I couldn't make complete decisions. And it was a startup, maybe like 100 people, moving super fast, growing insanely quickly. Quantum machines is what they're called. Highly recommend people check them out if they're interested in the quantum world. I think that they're going to be one of the ones that have the highest likelihood of success, because they're kind of selling picks and shovels. I'm not going to get into the pitch on the company, but nonetheless, again, even at 100 people, many other projects going on simultaneously. Having the experience of not full ownership, that was pretty tough. That was pretty tough for me. It ended up being okay. I mean, obviously, the plan was to move the family out there. I had young children. Those I was gonna go and see family, and then of course the war broke out and all of that, and so then they needed somebody on the ground, which is very reasonable. So we ended up not moving out there, but it was a lot of fun to work on that, and with a great team, and also like a really really impressive leadership team as well. But even then, not being the person that's like, okay, I have all the information, I can make a decision. I don't think it's something I'm looking forward to repeating. So when you're at Google after the $250 million, the price keeps going up because they haven't sent in the offer yet, at $250 million for your company. I'll be interested in talking to you, and like, how does it feel where you have, obviously on the one side, you'll see all the interesting things they do and how they do them. But when you you don't have the autonomy to like make the bet and make the decision, and you need people above you to authorize things. And then you get into that trap that we started, and you're like, it's 3 months, it's 6 months, it's like, it's down the road. We'll make, we'll either make 10 billion or $50 billion between now and then, depending on when it comes out. Like, who cares?
Well, when I sell for 300 million,
Yeah.
first thing I'll do is set a podcast episode. And they
Perfect.
will uncover how I managed to sell it for 350 million.
Yeah. I look forward. I look forward. Yeah. There'll be the pathway to a $500 million exit at Google.
And with your companies, like right now you have a co-founder, right? Did you have a co-founder with your previous startups as well? Or is it the first time you're having?
No, I have had co-founders, co-founders or sort of near founders, but I'm not technical. I mean, I know how to read code, and I have had enough experience now that I feel like I know why code breaks a lot of the time, but that's not my main job. So I've always worked with others.
And what are the qualities you look for in others?
I think, well, it obviously depends on the level and the stage of the company and the type of company. But what I really like, going back to learning and like, why am I in an education company? I really like the process of learning. Like I love having an idea and then somebody like telling me something or bringing a different perspective that changes my mind, and like I have a different perspective on things. That's amazing. That's my favorite thing. It actually happened yesterday. I'm just thinking about that. We have this specific feature where we're trying to figure out what happens if like questions are, if a specific question for a specific student is sort of too hard and they don't understand what to do. When do you sort of go into teaching mode versus like, this is just way more advanced, we kind of need to skip it. And then the challenge is that sometimes when it's really hard, we can see that students come back and they actually learn and they have that experience. So we don't want to rob them of that. And we've just been going back and forth on this for weeks about, do we make it easy to get out of the situation because you're just otherwise stuck? And then every student, if they have even a little bit of a challenge, they're like, okay, I'm done. Or do we kind of lock them in there? But what if they're like really, really stuck? So, we've gone back and forth. Just yesterday, my co-founder was like, listen, the way we do this is you got to think like higher level. We just increase the what the student needs to do, so it flags something to their teacher. So there's like this interaction. So we won't get a situation where, students are just mashing that and skipping along because it's notifying their teacher and the teacher will come through. So again, it's a really simple example. As I say it out loud, like, of course, it's what we should have done from the get-go. But it was like we were just digging in, and my co-founder just came up with like, okay, why don't we just sort of think at a higher level, like what's the social situation that the tool is being used that we can leverage that. So this is a very long way to answer your question, which is what I like. What I look for is somebody that likes to sort of debate and likes ideas and is really open to deep conversations and sort of the unknown. And because that's where I spend a lot of my time, is like just like in the things that are non-obvious to me. I make really quick decisions on things that are obvious to me, so I get to spend as much time in the things that are non-obvious. And so somebody else that is also willing to do that. Now, obviously, like that's as far as the relationship. I can't just have somebody that's philosophizing with me all day, every day. Like they need to actually go out and be executing, depending on the role. So a CTO, like, it's got to build the whole freaking system. So that's a different set of problems.
And how do you settle disputes? Because that's an integral part to any relationship. If somebody tells me like, "Oh, we never quarrel," I'm like, "Oof, you're not talking enough."
Yeah, I don't know. I think you just keep talking it. You just keep talking about it, and I think oftentimes what I found in startups is the disputes arise because something is not obvious, and ultimately you just gotta make a decision to go left or right. And you don't know if this is the right hire, you don't know if this is the right feature set, you don't know if this is the right price point. I think the first thing that is really helpful is to like put out the humility around it and be like, I totally see these points. I totally see these points. We are living in the unknown. We actually don't know. If we knew, it would be an easy situation. And then let's go for it. Let's try it out. And I think I definitely, I get overridden by the team on things that I think. And if enough people make enough good decision or enough, compelling reasons, I say, all right, cool, let's try it out. I do think a lot about, sort of the one way and the two way doors as well, right? Like, we can try this out. Let's make sure that we're collecting the right data to see whether this was a good decision, whether this was a good hire, whether this was the right price point, whatever it was. And then can we back out and kind of go down a different path?
And what was your main drive for starting a company? Because everybody starts with, I want to create something great. Well, almost everyone's like has a great vision after seeing Mark Zuckerberg or anything with it, like with our upbringing. And they're just motivated by this, like, I need to make $1 billion company, unicorns. Did your motivation start with a similar kind of level, and then maybe it's changed over time?
It's a good question. I don't, I think at different stages, there's been different motivations. Certainly, like the motivation for starting this one is like, wow, this is going to change the world, and I want to be a part of it. And I want to shape how education happens. And I have a certain set of beliefs on what I think is good, and I want to manifest them into the world. And even if I fail, I cannot allow myself to be in a situation, sort of the regret minimization framework. I can't allow myself, like, on behalf of, 50 or 60-year-old Edan, let alone 80-year-old, I can't let, 37-year-old Edan can't let that person down by being like, you didn't give it a go. So it really is that, like, I think that we are really now beginning to see fundamental changes in how people learn things. And I think that's kind of that is what being human is today. It's basically the tools and the education that we have. We're very similar to the humans of 50,000 years ago, except for we have better education and better tools. And so being a part of that is just very, very important to me. I think the other thing, motivations for starting versus motivations for continuing, things do change over time and sort of at different stages of the company. I do also really enjoy sort of coaching and mentoring and leading people and getting wins for my team members. Like, that's just, I've had that experience. It's like even more fun than getting wins for myself. So that's something else. But obviously at this stage in the company, like, the obsession is like, how can we make the next conversation for the next student better than the previous one? What can we learn? What can we tweak? How can we make it more engaging? How can we make it more educational? How can we extract out information and make it usable by the teacher and, like, make it slightly better? Like, how can we create, identify patterns between a teacher has 15 students and, these students have these challenges, and we can extract that. And how do we relay that? Like, that to me is a project that I don't plan on dying anytime soon. But, like, if that's like the project that I work on for the rest of my life, totally worth it,
Do you have trouble sleeping because of obsessions over your idea?
Trouble sleeping? No, I don't. It's not quite to that level. I do think about it off, like, when I'm laying in bed, and my team knows about that because they get Slack messages at, midnight. Like, oh, that is a really good idea. Let's talk about that tomorrow. And I do, wake up, and sometimes I have interesting dreams about, like, what if we did this? So I don't know. I don't know if I'm not somebody that really has a hard time sleeping. But it is sort of the default thing on my mind is, like, how can I think about this differently?
Do you think you'd ever want to retire?
I retire every day, retire into my hobby. I mean, what does that mean? I think is sort of
Dropping work, like all of the like stress, creating something, managing people, dropping. I have enough money reserved in the bank. There's maybe some passive income, and I just discover what can I do with my boredom.
I mean, I think that Yeah, maybe that's, we talked about patience and that skill that I'm going to learn when I'm in my 50s. That might be a nice move. I also did one of those 10-day Vipassana meditation retreats, which I highly recommend if anyone hasn't, if anyone's considering meditation. So I also have a practice of meditation. And you would be like, of course, then he should have more patience, but no, it doesn't translate for some reason.
Tell me about
uh,
it.
I meditate here and there, sort of for 10 to
For what?
30 minutes. But a Vipassana meditation retreat. Do you know? Have you heard of these?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. Okay,
It's like
so
10 days of ayahuasca or
no, it's like maybe it's like an ayahuasca. I've never done ayahuasca.
me neither.
That's another conversation about my time in Ecuador. But no, no, I've never done ayahuasca. But the idea is it's 10 days where you don't speak, so it's a silent meditation retreat, and every day, I don't know, you do maybe like 10 to 30, I don't know, many hours of meditation. And the real thing that's amazing about that is you get to experience boredom and everything else beyond that, and sort of begin to understand how my mind works, and how little control I have over it. And I just, when you talk about retirement, that's almost what I heard, is like, I guess, yeah, sure, I could maybe do like a year of silent meditation in a cave in Tibet or something. But it's not like I'm not sitting at on the beach, drinking mai tais all day. That, which is great, but like I can't do that for that long. What about you? Do you think you'll ever retire?
That word used to be in my vocabulary maybe a couple of years back. And everybody around me, like especially in Ukraine, it's always about you have to make, you make your $100 million, put it in a bank, leave off the percentage, retire, enjoy the yachts, the trips and everything. Leave, start living, like going traveling, going outside for walks, I don't know, experiencing the world. And that would always be quite alien to me. It's like it's not as much fun. Like there's not much fun in there. Like okay, I'll travel there. Like how many beaches do I need to see? To like see the world. Like they're all the same. Um, and then I would get to work with court, and I would go to my wife and I'm like, this guy is 60 years old, starting his new startup, and he's so involved and he's so energetic and engaged with it. Like sometimes he would send emails, and it's like I know it's 3 a.m. in Seattle, and I'm like,
Mhm.
and the next morning is like I've been thinking about this and obsessing about this feature. We can add this and do this, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna be at 60. Like
Yeah,
I love this energy. It's like this vision of me at 60. It just motivates me, and it's like this is what I'm gonna be. I'm not gonna be retired. I'm gonna
yeah,
be building the next thing that I
yeah,
find
yeah. And,
interesting.
and, and I mean, I don't know. I don't want to out court, but I think he also takes very good vacations. He
Oh,
doesn't. Like there's no reason why you can't do both, right? And I think, yeah, I think folks like us, we're interested in doing things, and the idea of like being in a purely consumptive state, I don't know, that seems very taxing. Yeah, that's what
So
I'd say.
if money was never an issue, so for example, let's say AI takes over, it just takes away the money. Like you don't need to make money anymore. Like money is not a concept, and you can do whatever you want. Like imagine as a kid, you're coming to the sandbox. You can play any game you want. There are like all the other people. What would you be playing?
I'd literally be doing the same. I would be working on Wild Zebra right now. 100%. It would be even worse if you're like, money's not a thing, but everyone gets $500 and you got to spend it on something. I'd be like, okay, I got to spend it on this so that I get to do this. I mean, like this really is. I mean, at this stage, obviously things might change, but at this stage, it is the most exciting thing I could possibly imagine. Like maybe it would be more exciting if I also had raised $100 million, but had investors not breathing down my neck. So maybe that combination would make it a little even more fun. So I could walk down more paths simultaneously and like see what like feature combinations. But I'm literally in the stage right now where if you said money does not exist, this is what I'm doing right now. I think the world is going to be fundamentally different in 5 years, and specifically this aspect of it, which I think is one of the most important things. And I think I've got a set of perspectives on it, and I would 100% be doing this. Like, that sounds, I can't imagine letting other people run this race and looking from the outside like, oh, that's fear right there. What
That's
about
my
you?
game.
Yeah. What about you? If money was not a thing for you?
Currently, 5 years ago, it was all about like I want to build the world of future, and like even if it's dystopian or anything, like I want to be in those technology. That's a part of why like IT, because I get to work with people who are doing that to kind of
Mm-hmm.
see how do people build these things to build the future. But at the same time, I'm find interesting like Squid Game, like the Beast games, just organizing these things, like new environments, like games intellectually, where you have to like work with people to solve challenges. I'd want to pick really interesting people, create camps around for them, and then just have them all play like all these like elimination games or intellectual games, and just bring all of those like societal. So I always know if AI takes over, this is what I'm doing.
Well, just let's do that. I mean, that sounds awesome. I mean, I don't know if I'm invited to one of these, but I love games. That'd be great. I think you should do it, and I'd love to be a part of it. That sounds cool. And
I
remind me, you don't have kids, or you do have kids?
not yet, but I'm 30. I'm turning 34 in 7 days.
Oh, nice. Happy birthday soon.
Thanks. I don't have kids yet, but I'm getting ready, like mentally with all I'm doing, and as a father of two now. What can you tell me about how does life change? Because in general, I know that, for example, with financial wise, men who have kids earn 40% more than those that don't have kids. I'm like, okay, so generally on the human level, there is something that kids bring, the level of motivation. So you're not just doing it for yourself and your own vision, you're bringing kids into that as well. I'm like, does that actually work? Like, are you more motivated now?
Well, first of all, I just think that study, again, you get into causality thing. Yes, men that have kids maybe earn 40% more, but I guess what I'd say is people that earn 40% more are more likely to have kids. I think there's a causality problem there. I think that, people that are not able to like make things work in our society and hold down a job are just probably less likely to have kids. So that's
Yeah.
probably more of it than the other one. I'm not gonna lie to you. My daughter's only 5. I almost don't remember how life was 6 years ago. Um, so how does it change things? Man, I don't know. You lose a lot of sleep in the beginning, and I guess at this stage, for me, I just need to be kind of much more focused with my time because I do enjoy spending time with my kids. So like trying to just literally turn my phone off from 5:30 or 6 p.m. until 8:30. Again, there's some for obsessives like us that really like our jobs. Like that's actually one thing that I needed to do because otherwise I'm just like constantly thinking. But like whatever, I'll just write stuff down on a piece of paper. It does. I think I don't know what level of mathematics you did, but it kind of like I think I described it to one of my friends right before he had his kids, and he sort of said, "Yeah, that makes sense." Like, you're living in a 2-dimensional plane or a 3-dimensional plane, and you add another vector, you add another dimension to the equation. It's very hard to describe what that is. It was hard for me to understand when living at the different dimensions. So you some of the things that you want to do, like build these camps, like now you got 6 months. Let's go. Yeah, your time becomes much more compressed, and I'm sure you can also talk to people at different life stages, right? Like my kids are 5 and 2. I think I'm very involved in their lives. It's very intensive, but even like 2 years old versus 6 months, is a very very different game. But you just start There's like a whole new vector in life. There's a whole new dimension that impacts every single other thing that you do. So like for me, everything else that I do, every commitment of time. And then I think the other perspective on it is uh, there is sort of a longer term thing that comes along with that, where you're just you obviously intellectually know it, but it's different to experience it. We're like, oh, I there I go all the way back, my parents and their parents and so on, and like now there's the continuation, which is a very interesting experience as well. Sort of to think about intellectually and then experience in the moment as well. So I don't know. I don't think it's very very useful. I think maybe just my only bit of advice to myself is just do the things as if you don't have kids right now and just go as hard as you possibly can, because things will dramatically change and you'll want for them to change, and you'll be a little bit more, or I became more focused in certain ways.
And when you talked about your level of obsession and then you having to write things down on a piece of paper to kind of make sure you control it, do
Oh
you?
yeah, that's so that my kids are not experiencing their dad as somebody who does this, and I don't get messages from customers that something is broken and then it triggers my amygdala, like, oh, I gotta like get this fixed and message my team like, hey, there's this, but like, that's actually one thing that has, and I'm sure you do this. Like, I'm sure if I emailed you and you're working and we're working on a project and I'm like, hey, there's something that's broken here, like, boom, you jump on it,
Drop
right?
everything.
Yeah, jump, yeah. Like, I don't know how you're like, if you're at a restaurant with your wife and you get a message like that, what's her experience?
Um, she gets a little annoyed, but at the same time, she's very understanding that this is just who she married. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of person that I am.
Yeah,
And I'm building the life for both of us. That the guy who'd be like, oh, I'll I'll take it in 4 hours when I get
yeah,
home. Like, he
yeah.
wouldn't be able to build.
That's true. That's true. So, and I think that things change a little more once you have got kids. I don't. Maybe it's. I guess it's different for each person, but then part of it is also, yeah, like, how do you want to be in front of your kids, and is there a way you can do everything you want and be even more effective? So I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions. I'm still discovering it as well. But I guess for me, it's definitely been a positive thing. I don't think everyone has to have kids, but they're pretty great.
Because I'm seeing so many of my friends, like some of them have three, four, five companies, and then they get them in the group. And then I talk to my wife, and they're like, that's their way of having kids. And they're turning 40 now without like even thinking about like, oh, will we ever have kids? And then I talk to other people, and they're like, that's the most important thing that you can do is to have kids and bring somebody else into the world. So I'm seeing this like mass wave of people who are being very cautious of bringing kids into the world, kind of like trying to live for themselves or being scared of, you have to do everything right. We can't mess this up. With kids, you have to be ready. You have to know how to do it. A lot of kind of responsibility. While others like, well, you can't control it. You just have them. You do your best to make sure they don't fall off the building or I don't know,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
let them be into their own life. Okay, this is going to be the end of the part one of the conversation.
Awesome.
We'll continue very soon.